The morning sun filtered through the curtains, casting a warm glow across the living room. Shaq stretched, rubbing the sleep from his eyes, then glanced over at Jay, who was still asleep on the couch. For the first time in a long while, his friend looked at peace. No restless shifting, no tense shoulders bracing against the cold. Just calm. Shaq exhaled. He had spent half the night thinking about what to do next. One thing was clear, he couldn't just let Jay go back to the streets. But fixing this wasn't as simple as giving him a place to crash. The situation ran deeper. Jay stirred, blinking awake. He looked around, almost disoriented for a second, as if he had forgotten where he was. Then he sat up, rubbing his face. "Man, that was the best sleep I've had in ages," he muttered, stretching his arms. Shaq chuckled. "That's what happens when you're not sleeping on a bench, you know." Jay smirked, but there was a sadness in his eyes. "Yeah, thanks, bruv." Shaq waved it off. "Listen, we need to talk. You're not going back out there. We gotta sort things out." Jay sighed, leaning back. "Shaq, I appreciate everything, man. But I don't want to be a burden." Shaq's expression hardened. "Stop that. I don't want to hear it. You're my brother. This ain't about charity. It's about looking out for each other." Jay nodded slowly, but Shaq could see the hesitation, the weight of pride mixed with the reality of his situation. He had always been like that. Even back in the day, Jay never wanted to take handouts. He was the type to struggle in silence rather than ask for help. And now that same pride had kept him suffering alone. Shaq sat forward. "Tell me something. When was the last time you really had a chance? Like a real opportunity?" Jay hesitated, then shrugged. "Years ago, maybe. Had a decent job. Things were stable. Then life flipped the script on me. One bad thing after another. You know how it goes." Shaq nodded. He did know. The world wasn't fair. Some people caught breaks. Others just kept getting hit with losses. "I want to help you get back on your feet," Shaq said. "Not just for a night. For good." Jay looked at him, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. "How though? It's not that easy, man." Shaq leaned back, thinking. "Let's start with something simple. A fresh start. A new job. I know people. Let me make some calls." Jay exhaled. "You really think that's enough? A job? You think people see me the same way now? You don't get it, Shaq. Once you fall, people stop looking at you the same." Shaq frowned. "Who cares what people think? They don't know you. They don't know your story." Jay scoffed. "Nah, bruv. You're famous now. You don't see it. You walk into a room, people listen. Me, I walk in and they see someone who's been on the streets. Someone they don't trust. That's just the truth." Shaq fell silent. He hated that Jay was right. He could give him a couch to sleep on, buy him food, even set up job interviews. But society had already judged Jay, and that wasn't something money or connections could easily change. Shaq drummed his fingers on the table, deep in thought. Then an idea hit him. "What if we flip the script?" he said suddenly. Jay raised a brow. "What do you mean?" Shaq grinned. "What if we show people who you really are? Not just some guy who's been through hard times, but the real you. The Jay I know. The one who's funny, smart, talented. What if we take control of the story before anyone else does?" Jay looked at him warily. "And how exactly do we do that?" Shaq leaned forward, excitement building. "We tell it ourselves. On camera." Jay's eyes widened. "Wait, what?" Shaq nodded. "We document this. We show people what life is really like. No sugarcoating. No pity. Just the truth. The journey back up. You've got a voice, bro. and people need to hear it. Jay stared at him, processing. So you want to turn my life into content? Shock shook his head. Nah, I want to turn your story into inspiration. Think about it. How many people out there are struggling like you? Feeling invisible, feeling like nobody cares. We could change that. Show them they're not alone. Jay rubbed his chin, clearly torn. I dunno, man. Being in front of a camera, that's your thing, not mine. Shock shrugged. Doesn't have to be fancy. Just real. Raw. We don't even need to post it if you're not comfortable. But just try. Let's record a little something. See how it feels. Jay hesitated, then sighed. All right. But if it feels weird, we drop it. Shock grinned. Deal. That day, they set up a small recording in Shock's apartment. Nothing scripted, nothing flashy. Just Jay talking, sharing his story. The struggle, the setbacks, the reality of what it meant to lose everything. And as the camera rolled, something shifted. The diner was buzzing with the usual afternoon rush. The scent of fresh coffee and sizzling bacon filled the air as plates clattered and conversations blended into a steady hum. Among the waitresses weaving between tables, 22-year-old Emily moved quickly, her ponytail bouncing as she balanced a tray of steaming plates. She wasn't just serving food, she was juggling dreams, bills, and the weight of 1,000 worries. Emily had worked at this small-town diner for the past 3 years, clocking in double shifts to support her mother and save up for college. The job wasn't glamorous, but it was honest, and she took pride in making customers feel welcome. She had no idea that today, one particular customer was about to change her life forever. At first, he didn't stand out. Just another man in a corner booth, wearing a baseball cap low over his face, sipping black coffee as he scrolled through his phone. Emily approached with a polite smile, as she did with every customer. Hey there, welcome in. Can I get you something to eat? She asked, not expecting anything out of the ordinary. The man glanced up, his eyes sharp yet kind. I'll take whatever you recommend, he said, his voice calm but confident. She thought for a second. You can't go wrong with a house special. Pancakes, eggs, and bacon. Sounds good, he nodded. Emily jotted down the order and walked away, not realizing the man's gaze followed her for just a moment longer than most. There was something about her energy, her kindness, the way she carried herself despite the exhaustion in her eyes. As she rushed between tables, she didn't notice the whispers among a few customers, the curious glances toward the man in the booth. If she had, she might have realized that this was no ordinary guest. In fact, he was one of the most influential people on the planet. Elon Musk sat quietly, observing the way she handled the chaos around her, the way she smiled despite the stress. There was something undeniably impressive about her, but Emily remained unaware. To her, he was just another customer, until something happened that would leave her completely speechless. Emily returned to the counter, grabbing a fresh pot of coffee as she made her way through the diner. The afternoon rush was beginning to slow, but exhaustion was already settling into her bones. She didn't have time to think about it, though there were still tables to clear, refills to pour, and bills to drop off. As she passed by the corner booth, she noticed the man she had served earlier was still there, slowly stirring his coffee. Something about him felt familiar, but she couldn't quite place it. Maybe he was just another traveler passing through, or maybe she had seen someone who looked like him on TV. Either way, she brushed the thought aside. There were more important things on her mind, like making sure she could pay rent this month. She set down a fresh cup of coffee at a nearby table when she overheard a hushed conversation from the booth behind her. That's him, right? It has to be. No way. Why would he be here, in this tiny diner, I swear, it looks just like him. Elon Musk. Look at the way he's sitting. He's always hunched over his phone like that. Emily's breath caught for a second. Asterisk asterisk Elon Musk. Asterisk asterisk, the name sent a jolt of curiosity through her. She stole another glance at the man in the booth. The more she thought about it, the more it made sense. The way he carried himself, the sharpness in his eyes, the almost too casual way he tried to blend in. Still, it couldn't be. Why would one of the richest men in the world be sitting in a small-town diner, eating pancakes? Shaking off the thought, Emily continued with her work. She had customers to take care of, and the last thing she needed was to get distracted by some wild theory. But as she approached his booth to check on him, she noticed something strange. He wasn't looking at his phone anymore. Instead, he was watching her, not in a creepy way, but with a kind of quiet curiosity, as if he was studying her. She hesitated for just a moment before speaking. "How's the food?" He smiled slightly. "Perfect," he said. "You were right about the pancakes." She chuckled, feeling a little less nervous. "Glad you liked them. Anything else I can get for you?" He seemed to consider for a second. Then he asked, "How long have you been working here?" The question caught her off guard. Most customers didn't ask personal questions, at least, not like that. But something about him made her feel like she could answer honestly. "A few years now," she said, trying to save up for school. His expression didn't change much, but there was something in his eyes. Understanding, maybe. "That's not easy," he said. She shrugged, trying to brush it off. "Yeah, well, you do what you gotta do, right?" He nodded, as if he respected that answer. "Yeah, you do."